We know that the Rebbe is very against children learning secular studies. The Rebbe was proud if a Lubavitcher boy doesn't know how to read the street signs. I believe there was a saying of Chassidim that when in goes the A, out goes the Aleph. On the other hand, can we say this referred only to a generation that spoke or at least understood Yiddish and was able to read and understand the language? Obviously that would be best, but if for whatever reason the boy doesn't come out of knowing Yiddish, would it in any way be going against the Rebbe's wishes to have the boys learn English, to be able to read and write, to be able to read and learn on his own without being spoon-fed everything? The question is specifically for not the brightest kids that can easily pick it up on their own, but rather the kids who need that extra help. Is it a thing to pursue that the boy uses his time wisely and not waste it, or worse, abuse his time because of his boredom and his inability to read? I agree completely with this question. And I don't think it's accurate to say that the Rebbe was proud if a boy couldn't read a street sign. The Rebbe was proud if it wasn't important that he could read a street sign. The Rebbe did make mention, and it's a look with the Sichos actually, about a boy who speaks English with an accent. I think it's very, very important to understand the spirit of the Rebbe's words and appreciate how not just to do this with our children, but to teach this to our children. And because so many people look at not learning English like a gzeira, just like you're not allowed to drink mashke till you're 40, you're not allowed to learn English till whatever age, 9 or 12. I've spoken about this so many times in these Q&A, but I want to answer it again. You're asking it again, I'm answering it again, but I'm answering this question specifically. The most important thing that Rebbe wants parents to understand and teachers to understand is that children don't go to school to learn languages. Any language, not English, not Yiddish. They go to school to learn how to be Jews, how to be Yidden, how to serve Hashem. And included in serving Hashem is Midas Tevis, as being a good person, not just learning how to read Gemara or Chassidus. The skills that we need for life, we have to learn. But that's not what Cheder is about. And it's not really the job of the Cheder. It's the job of the parents. It's the job of all those people who are responsible for children in ways other than the specific role that is called Taharas HaKodesh. So, as a parent, if you feel like if you don't give your child the ability to read and write, they're going to be very handicapped, or as you put it, and I think you're correct, they're not going to pick it up on their own, you should certainly teach it to them, but not in school. And it's not part of the school's responsibility, which means, practically speaking, to demand that the school be different because you feel that your child needs this skill is misunderstanding the point. You have an option to send your children to schools where they teach Limudei Chol, which is not the biggest sin in the Torah, but a school that follows the Rebbe's attitude of Taharas HaKodesh is there just to provide Tahara and just to provide Kedusha and nothing else. It's not a crime to teach your children how to read and write. And as I've said before, you're responsible for your child. And if you feel, as a parent, that you need to give your child something, unless we're talking about things that are not allowed, you give it to them. The Rebbe has his directives. I think the Rebbe's directives are quite clear. And if anybody wants to know what the Rebbe holds, they can find out the truth. But as a parent, you need to feel comfortable that you're giving your child everything your child needs in order to live in this world. But that doesn't only mean how to make money and how to live in the world materially. It also means how to be a Jew and how to be a chassid. And it's a lot harder to be a chassid than to make money. I know when we don't have money, we don't see it that way, but that's the actual truth. So the real issue with the Rebbe is, as the Rebbe would say it about a variety of different things, is kochazach in them. The passion of a Jewish boy and a Jewish girl has to be in Yiddishkeit and in nothing else. And it can't be split. That's the meaning of Taharas HaKodesh. So can a child learn how to read and write? Sure. If a child has an interest in something worldly, which is benign, I don't know what it would be. Let's say history. Is it a mitzvah for that child to study history? No. Is it an aveda for that child to study history? Also not. As parents, you have to manage the intake, the intellectual intake of your child, and of course the unfortunate reality is, as long as the children are going to listen to you, And you have to decide what's appropriate, and you have to also decide what you need to give your child. But the Rebbe wants us as Chassidim to value Yiddishkeit and Chassidus on a level that nothing is on the same shelf, nothing comes near it, nothing is in the same realm, everything else is second. And that only gets communicated to the child if we really believe that. If we really wish we weren't Lubavitch, if we really wish the Rebbe had made these decrees, but we're Nebuch, so to speak, stuck in this box where there are these rules, then we're giving our child the wrong message, and we're not practicing Chassidus the way Chassidus is meant to be practiced. Because Chassidus is not something which is being forced on a person. Chassidus is something the person embraces. And what we're embracing is a value system that places such primacy on faith and on purity that we make sacrifices. Some of them are quite expensive to retain a purity of faith and a purity of mind and heart and body. And this is the philosophy that's the foundation of the chinuch model that the Rebbe creates. But that doesn't mean that children should walk into poles because they're not wearing reading glasses. They're reading glasses, or they can't read a street sign. That's not the intent. But we have to be very careful that we're not just talking the talk, but we're walking the walk. That we're not just people who don't really buy into the values, but we're born in Lubavitch, so we're sort of stuck with the values, and they're not really ours. Because then we're going to confuse our children. Because they're going to get a mixed message. Our actions are going to say one thing, and our heart they're going to say another, and they're certainly going to read our heart. And that's the important thing. So to answer your question directly, it's not a crime to teach a kid how to read and write. Two things. Number one, it's not the job of the school. That's not why you go to school. And number two, it has to be done in the kind of way that your child understands. This is, quote unquote, one of the things that you need to do. But your life is Teira and Avodah, is Chassidus. And one last point. You spoke about being able to read and write a language. This is serious, and this is chinuch. Being able to read and write is not only a skill that's useful in practical ways, and of course more and more we have the computer to do all those things for us. Being able to read and write has to do with being able to think. Every child has to be able to write in one language, well enough to communicate with himself, to think something through, to plan something, to process something. I don't care what language it is. It could be Yiddish, it could be Hebrew, and it could be English. But learning how to read and write is not about being able to make it in America. It's being able to make it as a human being. Because the ability to read and write is the ability to reason. So I think this is the obligation of the schools. Even though schools are lyhadus HaKodesh have to either provide Yiddish or Hebrew in the kind of way that this is not something that they're doing as a study, but this is a language that they can use to write with and to communicate with and to speak with. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think in every school, especially the boys' schools that there's no choil, every day the boys have to write. Every day. Not for 5 minutes, at least for half an hour. And the writing, in Beis Rivka years ago when my children were growing up, they had something called journal where they sat in class and they just wrote. The boys need to write. I don't care what language, Yiddish, Hebrew, but they need to write in the kind of way that they know how to put together sentences in one language with a pretty decent proficiency. This will help them think, it will help them plan, it will help them structure ideas which are helpful in every area of life. And that, it could be Yiddish, it could be Hebrew. And if you want to do it at home and let it be English, let it be English. But it's very important, both as mechanchim and as parents, that our children know that what we value is Tara and Kedusha. And everything else serves it and is not equal to it.